Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here today with our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where we help people transform their bodies and their minds through a wellness-based approach. That means if you want to transform your body, it could be weight gain, it could be weight loss. It's just more people want weight loss than weight gain necessarily as an adult. But what I want to share with you is it should always be done through a holistic, healthy mindset, that we're not forcing the body to do anything. We're actually rebalancing the body, and we're rebalancing it in a way that we just reach our natural weight, not our weight that someone else wants us to be, but the weight that our body should be. And hopefully you checked out Monday's show to get rid of that comparing or being recognized or anything like that. I want to get that out of the mind and focus more on health. Well, today's topic, though, is how eating sugar actually messes with our mind and, of course, our body, but also how do we, or looking at the overall sugar addiction cycle. So I want to break it down for you. There's 4 parts to it, and you have to understand that although there's no one step that's more important than another, they all work together. And once you understand how the system works, it's so much easier to break the cycle. But the biggest thing, and I think the biggest issue we're focusing right now is people are thinking about just sugar and how bad it is. And I'm not disagreeing with that by any way, shape, or form. You know, processed sugar, such as like white flours or just processed food in general, right? If it comes in a box or it comes in a bag, for the most part, some are okay. It's not like they're not. It's not like I don't eat anything out of a box or a bag. But for the most part, they're mainly going to be processed, and they'll spike the blood sugar to a greater degree. One other point I always feel like I need to bring up is that we don't live in, though, like isolation chambers, meaning that eating, let's just say you're eating a piece of like oat flour-based bread, right? Oat bread, we'll say. So it's gluten-free and you're doing that. Most likely you're having that with some, butter on it or ghee on it, or you're making it into a sandwich. I'm thinking like most people, this is what they may be doing. Keep in mind, the glycemic index of that is radically different. I'm just talking about people drinking sodas and juices and especially anything that's unabated sugar. And that includes fruit juice as well. So fruit is healthy, fruit juice is not healthy. Like there's a radical difference between the two. And honestly, you are getting about 25 to 32 grams of sugar per 8 ounces of fruit juice. And that's unabated. That's right into the bloodstream, basically. That, unless you just did a workout or something that you're trying to refuel your body for some reason, that's not typically a healthy thing for children or adults. Now, fruit's a different story. Slower digestive process, etc. But also, again, even when I talk about fruit, all right, we're doing it for breakfast. Blood sugar levels are typically going to be healthier and lower. It's slowed by protein in a smoothie. It's lower glycemic fruit like berries or strawberries or something like that. And it's an energy food. Like that's what it is. So we teach through our fat velocity system for a weight loss, body transformation, or a functional medicine detox, or any of these things that you're actually doing less of it in the beginning, but then you can absolutely add more back in once your hormones and metabolism is more balanced. So again, I just have to give kind of like a little bit of a disclaimer for all of these things, because people try to share these items with you, but there's no nuance to it. So they're like, all fruit bad, all, organ meat good, all, like it's just like, well, life doesn't work that way. And humans and their systems are complex, but we can set things up in fundamental ways. We're using first principles of how the body works. So let's actually share with you, how do we get into this sugar addiction cycle in the first place? And this, again, I see it play out all the time. We have a lot of kids in our practice as well, our health practice. And you have to understand is that it's just more pronounced because they are what we call fast oxidizers. So they burn through their food at a much more rapid rate. That's why many children, not all, but many children do well with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a snack in between breakfast and lunch, and a snack in between lunch and dinner. Whereas most adults move on to be slow oxidizers, and they actually do better with just 3 meals per day, an intermittent fast of typically 12 to 16 hours. The more hours, 3 to 4 hours before they go to bed, the better. And I have lots of fasting shows as well, but fasting can be really, really helpful in order to be able to break that sugar addiction cycle. So I have lots of shows on fasting. Would love to help link those up too. And I'll give you a couple tips as we go through this show as well. All right. So the first part is this. You're eating something that's higher glycemic and spikes your blood sugar. Call it whatever you want. Honestly, it could be your favorite energy drink. It could be your favorite coffee with sweeteners in it, whatever. It could even just be, again, caffeine can give you a blood sugar spike simply because it can spike cortisol levels. And I have a lot of podcasts on that as well. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it certainly happens to some. So what I'm sharing with you is this. No matter what it is, whatever that event is that's spiking your blood sugar, here's what happens. This is what I need you to know. Forget about the foods for today. Lots of shows on those. When your glucose levels spike, 2 things happen. In the health industry, we almost only talk about the first one. All right. So your blood sugar is up. What does your body do? Well, you get signals from the brain, and the pancreas knows to begin to release insulin. What do we do with insulin? Well, insulin moves around your bloodstream, and its job is to basically unlock cells to get the glucose into those cells. So a healthy cell that has used glucose, that needs glucose, will what? It will uptake sugar from the bloodstream to actually use as storage or cellular process. This happens, well, a lot with the liver, but certainly the muscle glycogen stores as well. And if it doesn't, well, what happens? Well, it will certainly then be added as body fat. Again, if those calories are not needed. We have to understand, and again, this is like way overlooked in the industry, is that your body is always gaining fat or losing fat. Like that's essentially how it works. You're oxidizing body fat or gaining body fat, or kind of at a happy medium. But that's basically what's happening during the body, in the body. It's only a percentage that change, meaning like you are using oxygen, and I've gone through the different fuel systems of the body, so I'm not going to go too deep on it today, but like, we've got the anaerobic, we've got creatine phosphatase, we've got adipose tissue, your body fat breaking down fatty acids. So you're always using those throughout the day, but it's just easier to restore them, of course, if you're eating and spiking your blood sugar to a higher degree. Here's what's not shared with you though, almost never. And this is really what creates more of the addiction. It's the dopamine spike. Excuse me. So what happens is this. You spike your blood sugar. And with that spike in blood sugar from those foods, you get a dopamine spike, a dopamine high. You feel great. It is like being a little kid with that reward center, that pleasure center of the brain that doesn't really go away as an adult. It's dulled to a certain degree, but it's always there. Some people are more prone to it than others. But when you get that, you feel happy. So not only did you eat sugar, which leads to immediate fuel, which typically lowers cortisol levels, stress, right? That's what sugar can do as well. It's calming to the body, but it can increase the pleasure reward center of the brain. So now you ate this food, you got more energy, even if it's temporary. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But it rewarded you. It rewarded the brain like, hey, we got something good. Like, oh, we enjoyed this. But now here's what happens. If insulin is working properly, it unlocks those cells and it begins to then what? Lower blood sugar. And for some people who have dysregulated insulin, their body at first doesn't listen to the insulin trying to unlock those stores. And so it produces more and more. And this is a dysfunctional insulin regulation. And so what happens is now they have more insulin in their bloodstream than they really should. So now they get a high in blood sugar and then a low in blood sugar below the baseline of, let's say, around 75 or so. So now they're dropping into lower blood sugar. What happens now? Fight or flight. Cortisol begins to be produced. Norepinephrine gets produced. You feel more irritable. You feel more moody, lower energy, and you need to eat. But what are you looking for at this point? Well, you're not looking for healthy food, right? Dopamine's low. You're like, I need something to bring my blood sugar back up. So you're thinking right away, chips, pretzels, candy, soda, whatever it is for the quick, right? That quick spike in glucose. What happens after you get that? After you get that next surge of glucose from these particular foods I just mentioned, those processed foods, you get the next spike in what? Blood sugar. So then what do we get from there? A spike in insulin. And then what do we get from there? A spike in dopamine as well. And the cycle continues, right? You will ride this roller coaster all day long. And here's the worst part of it. If you start it with breakfast, then it's throughout the entire day. That's the problem. So for breakfast, that doesn't mean eat sausage and just eggs for breakfast. It doesn't. I know a lot of people like to think that your body's just waking up. So if your breakfast, I'm talking about like 8 o'clock. I'm not talking about breakfast at 11, right? Like it's a totally different story. That's lunch. Okay. So let's say though, you're waking up, you're putting all this hard to digest food in your stomach. Without hydrating the body first, without moving the fluid in your body, probably not the best idea for the long run. You want to do it for body transformation, it works. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. Again, I'm providing you unbiased information. If you want to transform your body, yeah, you can absolutely do what we call leans and greens, right? Like bodybuilders and fitness competitors have been doing that since the dawn of time. So again, I'm not commenting specifically on that, but I'm talking about overall health, because that's not the healthiest diet to be on either. Again, we'll save that for another show. So here's the thing though. Just have a breakfast that is balanced. Carbs, proteins, and fats. And again, you get to decide. I'm not telling you what to eat. What I'm telling you, though, is don't dramatically spike your blood sugar at breakfast. That is what I'm sharing with you. So our clients typically wait an hour or 2 hours after waking to have their breakfast. Their coffee is going to be after their breakfast if they decide to have it, so they don't get that spike right there in the morning. They're hydrating for the first hour or so upon waking. Now, again, some people who drop into hypoglycemia, okay, they eat sooner. But again, these things are nuanced. But for the most part, people are doing maybe some water with whatever you like, some squeezed lemon, some squeezed lime, some daily fruit and vegetable blend, some alkalizing vitamin C, whatever it is that you want to do, good. You're hydrating your body. And then, your blood sugar is coming down. So guess what? Not a bad thing. Now we eat. And we can actually enjoy some carbohydrates, right? If our blood sugar is balanced. And then after that, we let it level out. Then we have lunch, we let it level out. Then we have dinner. Now, for some people, again, there can be snacks, there can be other things in there. What happens, though, if you get dysregulated? The important thing is that the next time you eat should be focused on your fiber and your protein. Excuse me. So I've shared this before, but you can still eat carbohydrates. There has to be fiber. And you have to make sure that you're getting in enough protein to be able to satisfy those requirements and stabilize blood sugar. Fat is not going to do it to that degree. Now, people are on high-fat diets. I get it, but it's also because it's low in protein and low in carbohydrates. Once you start to add a lot of protein in as well, that can spike blood sugar. So we want to actually stick more towards balance. Again, not telling you exactly what diet to eat, but I do believe that you should look into the science behind this. So the next meal, I know that you're going to be craving a lot of those processed carbs again. The only way that you break the cycle is actually with some protein and some fiber. So keep it balanced, keep it healthier, and don't overdo that meal, because I know that your body's going to want to say overeat because you're feeling low on blood sugar. Having normal amount of food, 400, 500 calories, right? And then allow yourself to then stabilize. Then your next meal after that, you can go back to normal eating. There's one other way to do this. It is with an intermittent fast. Now, the problem is you don't want to be walking around with low blood sugar, right? So if you're hypoglycemic or you're feeling low blood sugar, that's not good either, because you're spiking cortisol, you're spiking stress hormones. It's not good for the body. So you still need to get a little something in just to stabilize, or going to bed. So if this is at night, going to bed will actually help stabilize. So something to think about. For the most part, people are doing this in the evening. They're eating a high glycemic snack, ice cream, pretzels, candy covered popcorn right before bed. We don't want to do that, right? We don't want to do that. We actually want to stabilize that blood sugar at dinner, healthy vegetables, some healthy protein, some healthy fat. And then we're stopping eating 3-4 hours before bed. Now, let's say we stop eating at 6 o'clock. We go to bed at 10 o'clock. We don't start eating then until, let's say we wake up at 6 in the morning. We go to bed at 10. We wake up at 6 in the morning. And then we don't have breakfast until maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock. We've done a nice, healthy 14-hour overnight intermittent fast. Again, as long as you're healthy, as long as you're balanced, that is going to enable your body to use that glucose overnight, to tap into body fat overnight, how the body is meant to process energy, how the body is meant to tap into body fat, And really, people saying become fat adapted. Again, listen to my shows on busting the fat adapted myth. It's understanding the energy systems of the body. The best thing to do, though, is work with the energy of the body, to work with the digestion of the body, and to make sure that you're satisfying the carb, protein, and fat-based requirements. Much easier that way. You can live a more interesting and healthy life as well, being able to eat a variety of foods, because they all provide benefits. The last part is this, and this is, again, what's overlooked, is the dopamine factor. If you are not spiking blood sugar, you do not get the over excess of what? Well, if you're not overdoing your processed carbs, you don't get the excess of blood sugar, but you also don't get the excess of dopamine as well. So you get a healthy amount of dopamine when you are eating, when you are working, when you are exercising, you're getting the healthy levels. And I'll do another podcast on raising dopamine naturally, because it is really important. Dopamine is what gives you ambition. It gives you drive. It makes you feel good. It makes you work towards something that's worthwhile. So it is a good thing. And I have a previous show on dopamine, so don't get me wrong. And you can even test your dopamine levels with a neurotransmitter test. I don't know the link of that, but you can certainly see the one that we use at stephencabral.com/labs. It'll tell you a whole lot about your mood. It's a really great lab to run the neurotransmitter and mind-based test. Excuse me. So the last part is this, is understanding that sugar is an addiction like many others. There's a great book that I read about 15, 20 years ago called, I think, Addiction in the Brain, or The Addictive Brain. Or Sugar in the Addictive Brain. But it actually went through that those people with the greatest chance of addiction actually often have the lowest levels of dopamine. So what we do, knowing family health history or knowing the person's genetics or whatever it might be, will actually give them a diet that's going to help naturally with whole foods increase their dopamine levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a follow-up show to today's show. I'm going to do it next Wednesday, all right? And so next Wednesday is going to be basically how to boost dopamine naturally with whole foods. And so definitely stay tuned for that. Again, I just wanted you to understand that this sugar addiction cycle is everybody has it, but it's to varying levels. Some people are affected much more by processed carbohydrates than others. Some people can metabolize it well, just use it as energy. Typically, they're more of an ectomorph. And again, it doesn't affect them to the greatest degree, but you have to know you. You have to be self-aware, and you may actually just have hormonal imbalances right now that need to be corrected as well, or even gut-based imbalances. So if we can start level the day, that's the most important time. If we're going to have higher glycemic foods, try to have them really after exercise, after a workout. That's going to actually be used to refuel all of those glycogen-based stores that you've used up. So hopefully this is helpful. Of course, if it was, I'd love you to share it with anyone else you believe it can serve. And stay tuned every day for the Cabral Concept. We try to bring new concepts, new ideas, new teaching points on a daily basis, and of course, always adding on to those. So let me know what you thought, and let me know any other topics you would like me to speak on. Take care, everyone. Have an amazing rest of the day. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only two ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.